From the agency of Sputnik, representative Latin America, welcome. Also the director of thecitizen.com. From Mexico, Sassy Alejandro, journalist, welcome. And from Finland, Vladimir Gusatinsky, also journalist. Please be welcome and received our greetings. The phrase has been repeated so many times that we really do not know who said it because we've lost the origin. Some said it was Esquilo. Chronologically is the oldest possible author of the phrase, but others say that a senator from the US, Johnson, from the beginning of the 20th century, also say some say it's from Churchill, and the phrase is known by all of us. In a war, the first victim is the truth. We all know that phrase, but no one could, in the worst of our nightmares, in the worst of our possible conspiracies against humanity, in the era of the 20th century, no one could think that truth would not need of specific and established wars in a regular and established manner that have been going on since the beginning of time. No one could imagine that the victim of society, of imperialism, of social networks, would be the truth. Because let's not call it a deceit. If we go over the mythology regarding the upcoming of social networks, we always go back to these histories and stories of a young man at his garage making up new softwares, or another one who invented social networks. But it was an operation, a psychological operation. It was a domination operation. Beyond the established domination in the economic relations that Karl Marx described so well, beyond that, it's based in the characteristics and the conditions of the profound psychology of the human being. If you ask a teenager, what does he fear the most? That teenager will say, or in his or her way, to being alone. The human being do not like being alone. The human being does not want to be a lone wolf. And if you go over the moment in which the language came and appeared in human life, it came up to join and to communicate, but it also came up in a truly new way, in a new animal in the earth and planet Earth. After language, the possibility of making up stories. We make up stories. We tell and narrate stories, and after that, and from that, different elements have come: literature and poetry and narrative, chronics and paintings. We tell stories, but our brain is designed because from that initial fable, from that first fable, came a great cohesion from the tribe, from the society. Those who sat down around the fire to tell stories, they felt that these stories brought them together and gave them an identity. It's what we came up about ourselves that set us apart from other species. Us human beings, we like fables, we like stories. So if we read a post of someone saying that they saw the Lake Ness monsters, he will have a lot of reproductions, a lot of retweets. And if someone writes after that, no, that wasn't the monster, it was just a pile of garbage, no one will say anything. We always pay attention to the story, to the fable, to the lie over the truth. And you were leaving a clear example right now of how this great operation that was not spontaneous, that was designed and was produced and it was instrumentalized for all the domination elements against human beings, that from the beginning of time has been known as imperialism, and now it's a global imperialism, and not only wants to control our whole lives, but also to control our minds. And it has achieved that to some extent. So many examples from many people that in Spain, United States, France, Germany, Brazil, Argentina, they're telling them, don't go to Venezuela, Venezuela's dangerous. In Venezuela, the people are hungry and they starve to death in the streets of the cities. A friend of mine, a Spanish friend, at night, we were here in Caracas, and we could see the popular sectors of Caracas lit up in the mountain right in front of us. And he said, what's that? The lights? And who lived there? The wealthy? No. The popular sectors. And they have energy. Yes. But if you go to other cities in the same continent, at night, you know where the poor live, where the popular sectors live, because you see the dark spots, because they do not have electrical power. That has an advantage, because when people come here and see the truth, they cannot believe it. And they're impressed. And maybe they also say that reality is much more beautiful than what he or she could have imagined, because of the piles of lies that they have said on Venezuela. And sometimes you tend to think, is it true that they could assassinate the truth? Isn't it true that the great conglomerate that is made up of humanity has already been discarded because truth is inaccessible? Even one of the worst crimes, I dare to say right now, the worst crime from the 21st century against humanity is the extermination and genocide in Gaza. Go and search it. Look for the way in which the media imperialism, that conglomerate, is talking about the genocide and the extermination campaign in Gaza. They say the war, that's how they call it, to assassinate dozens of thousands of children, they call it war. To killing journalists, they call it war. Killing representatives of the Red Cross, killing children when they were desperately looking for food. The other day I read on a similar event like this one, a phrase that was published at one of these European media outlets, and they said Israel, a generic as if it were any other countries, Israel prohibits the access to beaches in Gaza. It almost looked like a tourist piece of news. And actually, the genocidal army of Netanyahu was prohibiting Gazans from accessing the sea so that they could not fish, so that they could not access food and could not be able to reach the sea in that crippling heat to what they are exposed. So it's a war apparently from Israel, a country, against Hamas. And with that euphemisms that they use, it's happening before our eyes. It's happening just under our noses. The worst genocide that the history of humanity has known in the 21st century, and I dare to say in the last 120 years. It's only comparable to the Nazi genocide from the years 1942, 1943, 1941. How have the media conglomerate from the imperialism, how have they interpreted the news when the Red Army discovered, horrified, the concentration camps, the extermination camps from the Nazis? What would they have said? The war from Germany against the Jews? The phrase is from one of the most repulsive human beings in humanity, the designer of that so-called final solution, because they used those euphemisms as well. They said final solution, and they assassinated millions of people. They separated families. They took the father to a concentration camp and the mother to another concentration camp so she could be quickly assassinated, and the kids to another place. How would you call that? At the beginning of the so-called final solution, that was none other than an atrocious genocide against the Jewish people. And even in that moment, you have manipulation, because communists were also killed in those concentration camps. People belonging to the gay community was also killed in those concentration camps. But in a sort of macro manipulation, we only say that they assassinated the Jewish people and no one else, because communists are not good to highlight for those conglomerate. And it's clear what happened, and that was the drunk Churchill and the US as well. And well, for some, the French as well, the ones who most quickly fell against the Nazis. It would make things easier if every Jew, as defined by the Nuremberg laws, this was said by Reinhard Heinrich, of course, laws that were developed by Adolf Hitler. If every Jew, defined Jew, would carry along with himself a kind of sign, that sign that all the representatives of the Jewish people had to carry in the territory. How is that different? That persecution from the 1940s in Germany, from the persecution of migrants, Latin American migrants, at the United States of America, that is at this moment are at this moment being hunted by real troops that are highly armed. How is that different, and why is nobody denouncing this? Why are these denunciations being quickly covered and moved past with lies? Venezuela, not only Obama said that we were an unusual and extraordinary threat against the security of the United States. The country that has invaded the most countries in its history and the history of humanity, the country that has the largest arsenal, most devastating arsenal that humanity has known, the country that owes its own development to its own military complex. That country says that Venezuela is an unusual threat for them. Do you know how many times have people come out from the territory of Venezuela in its own history? How many times have troops come out the frontiers of Venezuela towards other countries? Just one time. One only time, when the Liberator Army, commanded by Simón Bolívar, went out of the Venezuelan border to liberate Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and Panama. And maybe because of that, we are an unusual threat. Because as the President Maduro says, we are rebellious. Yes, we do not like to kneel in front of someone else. Yes, we say that U.S. imperialism is a true threat to the existence of humanity, that what is being threatened at this moment is the mere existence of humanity and the existence of the planet. And I'm not being extremely alarming. If Benjamin Netanyahu exists, that is a shame for the entire of humanity. It's shameful for the entire group that we make up. What is it good that we look at Nazi propaganda and the Nuremberg trials and we say that that's not going to exist if every day we see kids being assassinated in Gaza? It is an embarrassment for us human beings that there is a human being so deprived of humanity that is not only an assassin, that is not only genocidal, but it's also a cynic. In the future, there will be journalists and investigators that, without a doubt, will compare Netanyahu to other terrible human beings from history, including Adolf Hitler. They will say, how could Benjamin Netanyahu, killing thousands and millions of kids, saying that he also paid the consequences of war because his son could not be married at a certain point? Because that is another element. A Jewish psychiatric said this at one of his books, Searching Destiny. The objective of fascism, the objective of Nazism, the objective of those assassins from the government of Benjamin Netanyahu is to tear apart humanity condition, is to tear apart the same existence of humanity so that then you can control them. So that is why they take away their food and bomb and assassinate those kids, so that their humanity is destroyed. That's our purpose, our capacity to love. And Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist, ends by saying that the only thing that can save the human being from extreme situations, the men and women from this terrible horror, to the humanity of so much horror. So we want to salute. President Maduro called me just a couple of hours ago and he told me, please send everyone my regards. I'm in the middle of a very complicated agenda. Of course, as a person like that is always subjected to, yesterday from very early in the morning and today as well, President is next to its people, building their new prosperity, that they try to take us away with sanctions, but that we conquered over those sanctions and we won over those conditions. And in the end, the objective that these beasts, these blood-seeking beasts, are looking for, we can't. We can't continue being human beings like this. And actually, it's the other way around. Only with a true purpose, and only maintaining and preserving our capacity to love, are we going to save the human species? Are we going to save ourselves from the most extreme situations? And that is why we salute and we agree with all the conclusions from these gatherings of these days, because like other initiatives like this, it's not that we have remained with our arms closed. We haven't remained with our arms closed here in Venezuela as we were confronting the most brutal imperial power that humanity has known. That has made us its main objective, that has directly attacked with hate and with envy the welfare state that Commander Hugo Chavez and President Nicolás Maduro were building and sustained and took care with their own hands. While at 40 years of the so-called Fourth Republic, that formed republic had little, I don't know if you know it, but here in Venezuela, in the military installments, there was always an office for the U.S. Embassy. Yes, sir. In those 40 years, who were ordering here were actually U.S. puppets. We had child desnutrition, malnutrition. We had child mortality so high, and people were dying from different diseases in hospitals. In less than 10 years, Commander Hugo Chavez took out so many people from poverty. And in less than 20 years, Hugo Chavez and Nicolás Maduro were able to eradicate illiteracy and also to achieve full education for the most part of the population from the early ages to university. That is what they targeted. They targeted that moment of prosperity of a whole people. And we have to say it time and time again. You are not going to read this at any of these media outlets from international conglomerates. In the year 2020, the pandemic year, only the 1% of the income that had entered Venezuela 3 years before entered in that year. Imagine at that moment if you're the father of a family and you have a good income. $2,000, $3,000 a month, and from one day to the next, your salary is reduced to the 1%. That is what happened here in Venezuela. Venezuela was importing 70% of the food that we ate. They did not allow us. Macri in Argentina, who before to the government of Cristina Kirchner and Néstor Chávez had bought the technology from Argentina instead of buying it from Europe. And Macri denied Venezuela the possibility of buying everything that we need to keep them going. And you know who repaired those technologies? Venezuelan scientists. And Maduro said, you are not going to be able to take us down. We say it with pride. Through our veins runs the blood of those who liberated this continent. And today, you can go to any streets in Caracas or Venezuela. 100% of what we eat, we take it out of Venezuela. The vegetables, meat, the milk. And that's how we move forward. Of course, how are they going to forgive us? How are they going to forgive Iran that conquered and won over the genocidal forces of Netanyahu? How are they going to forgive Russia and China, Nicaragua, and the heroic Cuba with 70 years of resistance? And that is why they put down this conglomerate of lies, and our purpose is to dismantle that, to deactivate that with a lot of effort, with a lot of work, because it's not easy. Every time that a kid comes into social media, a teenager comes into social media, it's a battle that we are losing. Or, not to be so extremist, at least it's a threat that we are facing. Because they managed, they could design a technology to make out of this deep psychological topics such as the fables and the stories. They use these to make these people unable to think and being able to be subjected to these lies. So when President Nicolás Maduro is marking 1 year and a couple of days from its presidential victory in 2024, an operation was installed in which the most important world influencers, the most important ones, they received payments. What do you do? No, I cook online. Well, speak wrongly of Maduro. What do you do? I travel around the world. Well, speak bad of Maduro. From the whole world, all of them who were aligned in this continent, and Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos, they were directing that whole process of the social networks against Venezuela. I'm so sorry for my immodesty, but Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg, we have nothing to say to you here from the Republic of Venezuela. So, of course, it's possible, and we can do it. You, with that beautiful declaration, you are the expression that this is possible, that that purpose can not only save our countries, I am not exaggerating, it can save humanity. Because at this moment, we have this great problem between being slaves or being free. And you are the hope that we will be able to be free forever. Thank you very much.
Bien.